Hello there and welcome to the Bicycle Diaries. I was going to call today's ride hot and hard, but for obvious reasons, which will become apparent later, I ended up calling it a bit of a disaster. Unfortunately, the ride started out quite stressful. I didn't have all of my cycling kit ready, so I was hunting around for that. I needed to put a new sensor onto the Cannondale, so I did that. Then I had to pair it with the Karoo, which wouldn't work properly. And then I forgot my water, so I had to go back inside and get that. I pumped the tyres up, and literally within 20 metres of my front door, I had a flat tyre. So I had to fix a puncture before I could do anything at all. Because the weather was nice, warm and sunny, the plan was to go out and ride 100 kilometres. But unfortunately for me, I had an extra technical issue, which is why I'm doing my piece to camera now. Basically, the GoPro Hero 7 that I use to do all of the pieces to camera on the bike and record all of the things that I'm going to say just would not record any audio. So I've got to do all of that post-ride like I'm doing now. The route that I was going to do was the one that my friend Des had created a little while ago, and the one that we used for the first 100 kilometre ride that we did back in March. I was going to follow it for more or less the first 50 kilometres or so, and then using the Hammerhead dashboard and the Cruise navigation facility, I created the rest of the 50 kilometres and tried to find a route that was going to be slightly less hilly than Des's route. Unfortunately, I wasn't all that successful. It was every bit, if not even hillier, than the one that we did back in March. The first half of the ride took me up Bevis's Thumb and then to the top of Harting Hill, and just like on that ride in March, I descended the absolutely terrifying descent of Harting Hill into the village. Now, Harting Hill is very, very deceptive. On Strava, it's only about 500 meters long, but the actual climb starts in the village, so it's more or less about 1.5 kilometers long. If you look at the average gradient on Strava, I think it says it's only about 13%, and that may well be true for the first part of the official climb, but the last 200 meters are over 20%, so it's a really, really difficult climb, and it's one that I have never ever been able to ride up in my entire life. So I think it's a really good candidate for me to take the e-bike back there and see if I can do it on that. The next really big climb was the climb of Milland Hill. And that was again very tough. It was about 1 kilometer long, and there are sections on there of about 15 to 17%. You get to a small junction and you think you've done it, but then you turn left and the climb just continues on even further. It's really, really tough. But the good news is that once you do get to the top, there's about a 4 kilometer descent before you have to start thinking about climbing again. After a quick refueling stop at 35 kilometres in the village of Liphook, I refilled my water bottles and headed for the village of Hilly. Now, the great thing about the roads that I was using was not just the fact that they're really, really quiet and really picturesque, it's that I know them really, really well, because basically they were the roads that I used to ride to school. At 50 kilometres in, I'd reached the village of Hollybourne, and this was where I took my second refueling stop. So I filled up my water bottle and I also took an opportunity to have something to eat. I was starting to get a little bit tired, and I think this may have been psychological. Firstly, I was on my own. The last time I'd ridden to Hollybourne with Des and my friend Hilly, obviously I was with some other people, and that's always a little bit easier psychologically. And plus, I knew that I was very, very close to the town of Alton where I knew people. So if worst came to worst, I could always stop with one of them, phone up my other half, and she could come and pick me up. But instead, I carried on, and this was obviously the point of no return now. I was pushing on, and I was heading for the village of Beach, where I was going to have a little bit of a shock with the climb. I knew it was a climb up to the village, but I didn't quite realise just how steep the climb was going to be. At the top there, it was about 12-13%, and that went on for about 400 metres. At 70 kilometres in, things were starting to get a little bit tough. It was a very hot day. According to my Karoo, it was about 28 degrees Celsius, and the route that I had selected was a fair bit hillier than I'd anticipated as well, so I was starting to get very, very tired. Plus, the roads that I was riding on were very unfamiliar, even though they were very, very close to where I grew up. So I was constantly looking at the Karoo and trying to work out where I was and where my next turn was coming up. At 91 kilometres in, I was back on home roads. Basically, I had found myself at the bottom of the Buns Bent and Hoe climb, and all I had to do was ride through the village of Hambledon, up Ant Hill, through Denmead, and then I was home. Unfortunately though, the Karoo was starting to run out of power, and it was saying that it had like 1% battery left. So if I didn't stop the ride and actually save it, there was a danger that the ride would have been lost forever. So unfortunately I saved the ride, and officially it did not show that I'd ridden 100 kilometres, but I knew that where I stopped it, there was another 15 kilometres or so to ride. And by the time I got home, that would have meant the ride itself would have been 105 kilometres. By the time I got home, I'd given myself the moral victory of riding 105 kilometres. And that was based on the route that I'd created on the Hammerhead dashboard. According to that as well, I'd climbed 1,200 metres, and just for fun, I'd also consumed about 4 litres of fluid during the 5.5 hour ride. Unfortunately for me, yes, the Karoo did run out of power, which was very annoying, and even worse was the GoPro not recording any audio whatsoever. So I was absolutely furious when I downloaded all of the footage into my edit system and couldn't hear a word of what I was saying. So again, that's why I'm doing it now. The ride was definitely hot, and it was definitely very hard. Not sure why it was quite so hard. Might have been because I'd picked the hottest day of the year to go cycling, or it might have been because I was cycling on my own. The last time I rode 100 kilometres, I was with my friends Des and Hilly, and having a wheel to follow always makes it much easier. Plus, it also makes you sort of just pull a little bit extra out of the tank if you feel a little bit tired. The obvious answer though is that yes, maybe I have lost a little bit of fitness, so I do need to get back on the bike and put some more kilometres in. Thanks for watching.